On Sunday, September 9th, 1739, the British colony of South Carolina was shaken by a slave uprising that culminated in the death of 60 people. Led by an Angolan named Jimmy, a band of 20 slaves organized a rebellion on the banks of the Stono River. After breaking into Hutchinson's store, the band, now armed with guns, called for their liberty. As they marched, overseers were killed and reluctant slaves were forced to join the company. The band reached the Stono River, where the colonists descended upon them, killing most of the rebels, and the survivors were sold off to the West Indies. After the Stono Rebellion, South Carolina authorities moved to reduce provocations for rebellion. Masters, for example, were penalized for imposing excessive work or brutal punishments for slaves as a school was started so the slaves could learn Christian doctrine. In a colony that already had more blacks than whites, the assembly also imposed a prohibitive duty on the importation of new slaves from Africa and the West Indies. Authorities also tightened control over the enslaved. The assembly enacted a new law requiring a ratio of 1 white for every 10 blacks on any plantation and passed the Negro Act of 1740, which prohibited enslaved people from growing their own foods, assembling in groups, earning their own money, and learning to read. Now, things that could have led up to it. The immediate factors that sparked the uprising remain in doubt. A malaria epidemic in Charleston, which caused general confusion throughout the Carolina, may have influenced the timing of the rebellion. The recent passage of the Security Act by South Carolina Colonial Assembly also may have played a role. The act required all white men to carry firearms to church on Sunday. Thus, the enslaved leaders of the rebellion knew their best chance for success would be during the time of church slaves, when armed white males, the slaves knew that the best time basically to act was during church, where the armed white men were away from the plantations, basically. I messed that last part up, but you get it. So, in a small synopsis, that's what the Stono Rebellion was. A rebellion in South Carolina at the time, which was one of the largest slave rebellions in the West, and it was led by a man named Jimmy.